Greetings all and welcome back to the channel, or as I call it, Crazy Town. It's Crazy Town because I bought the thing that's in front of us right now. This is a broken Rotel RSP-1576 home theater processor. Many of you who have been around for a while know that I've been trying to get a home theater upgrade over the line for a couple of years now, and this is the latest attempt at doing that. Basically what's going on is I have just about gotten all the way to the point of having a functional home theater upgrade here, except I still needed the processor and I still need to build the front stage speakers yet. The rest of the home theater project beyond that is intended to be only surround speaker upgrades, and those are entirely optional at this point. But before we actually get into this, I should update you on the screen situation. I'll get you off the boom arm here. That is no longer a XY Screens Black Crystal ALR. I just never could get the lines to come out of that screen, and it took a lot of fighting with the company that made it, but they finally agreed to send me the 4K SoundMax as a replacement. And that screen has been perfect. No issues. What has not been perfect was the response by that company, and I cannot recommend their products. I'm sorry, I just can't. Now, I'm sure as we get into this, there's going to be a number of people saying, this is more of a Mend It Mark type of project here, and I would agree with you, but here's the thing. Mend It Mark didn't just start out being as awesome as he is today. He's had a lot of experience to get to where he is today. And how do I get to that level? Well, I don't get to that level by setting limits on myself. So I'm going to try and fix this. I don't know if I can. It may not be possible. So it's here, and I'm going to see what I can do for it. That's all I can tell you. A little bit of a background scenario here for you. Rotel and I actually go way back to 1988, I think. I went to the local secondhand store, my favorite one. It was downstairs from my parents' music store in the basement of the building where they rented. And he would usually have a bunch of old stereo equipment there, usually junk, like the type of Lloyd's or Yorks or Sound Design type dealies where you had the tuner and the amplifier and the 8-track player all in one. And I got used to thinking everything I bought from him was trash. But then one day I saw this broken Noresco NC383 consolette there. It's one of those deals that had an integrated amplifier with a turntable on top. And I didn't know the name Noresco at all. So I thought, well, it's $5. Let me just grab that and I'll see what it can do. It had this dual turntable on the top. I'll never forget it. The turntable was smashed, so I took it off and threw it away. Probably shouldn't have done that now in hindsight, but I did. And then I hooked up the Noresco for testing, and it proceeded to almost blow up a 45-watt Akai speaker. Not in a bad way, in a very good way. Turns out Noresco subcontracted with Rotel for that particular model. They built their earlier models in Canada, and then when they couldn't make the go of it anymore manufacturing in Canada, they went to Rotel and had them do it. So that turned out to be an extremely good purchase because that $5 Noresco powered my home stereo all the way into the 2000s. It was that good. 60 watts per channel. It had more than enough power for my needs. So I've always been kind of wanting to get back into Rotel stuff. Now, when it comes to upgrading my home theater, I have pretty much given up the idea of buying a new processor at this point. These things just go for way too much bloody money when they're brand new. What I really wanted was the Anthem AVM70, but that's, if you can wait for Black Friday, you can get those for $4,000 Canadian, but most of the time they're $5,000 Canadian, and that's just not in the cards anymore for my financial situation as it stands now. So I've been looking for a cheap alternative ever since then. And that's when I found this guy, just, I think, 3 weeks ago. It was in the US, and it was not shipping excluded to Canada, so I could have bought it using eBay International Shipping. But the thing of it is, you guys know how I like spending money with From Japan, right? Well, they've actually got a sister company that operates out of the US called From USA, and I wanted to try that for the first time. So I picked something where I knew what the shipping cost would be through the eBay International Shipping and had it sent that way through From USA instead. And to their credit, From USA actually reached out to me after I hit the buy it now on this thing and asked me, you know, this is really high shipping costs inside the USA. Do you still want to do this? And I said yes, because I wanted to know exactly what I was getting into with From USA, because if this worked out well, I was going to do it again on another processor, most likely a Marantz 8802. I went ahead and did the deal. The shipping cost within the USA to the From USA warehouse was $99 US, which is $150 Canadian, which is ridiculous. But I stuck with it. They sent it to the From USA warehouse, which I now know is in Portland, Oregon. So if you want to use From USA, that's where they ship out of. And then shipping to Canada, all they would give me was FedEx Economy or Priority, and the cheapest I could go there was another $99 US dollars, minus about $15 with a coupon discount I had. So I paid more to ship this than I paid to buy this. What did I pay to buy this? $250 Canadian, because it's broken. And hopefully we're going to get to get this to work. I don't know. I'm really intimidated by this thing right now because I have not found a service manual. There's no tech support or nothing for this thing. It's me and my diagnosis skills against this. And I hope I can get it fixed. Now, I should also mention that I had no idea when I bought this thing that somebody was going to go on eBay and list like 5 Mark II versions of this processor for cheap. And I bought one of those too. The difference between one of those and one of these is the Mark II version has DIRAC. So very high priority for me to try one of them too. So I've got one of those coming. And apparently the Mark II works. So hopefully that is the case. Now, let's take a look at this beast. Now that I've talked your ear off for 5 minutes or so, probably more like 10 minutes, but got some marks on the rotary encoder here. And yes, that is a rotary encoder. Got some scratches and blemishes on the top panel and some scuffs. Here is the back panel. Everything looks good here, actually really good. Looks like it was fairly well taken care of, except for why it's acting up. I did find some reason for concern on the bottom before I went on camera with you. Let's see if I can show you. This is weird. I don't know what's going on with this. That doesn't look factory to me, so that might be a clue. Maybe somebody's been in this trying to fix it already and has given up, in which case I'm even more intimidated. Anyway, From USA did a phenomenal job with the packing on this device. I was expecting no less, having gotten used to what they do for From Japan and whatnot. But yeah, let's plug this in and see what it does. Shall we? I've got batteries in the remote, which is not the factory remote, so that's another red flag and a half. Okay, we've got power applied, so let's turn on the hard power switch and back. Let's observe what happens. I saw a flicker on the standby. I heard a relay click. No display. Let me shut one of the lights off. Actually, both lights. Can't tell if the ring around the rotary encoder is lit up or not. I'm just going to turn one light back on. We'll go around back because he said something about the Bluetooth being active. And yeah, we got a flashing light back there on the Bluetooth. Okay, let's see what it does when I hit the standby. Nothing. Feels like there's no switch behind that or something. Let's try the remote. Okay, nothing at all. So I'll turn the hard power switch off again and we'll get inside this thing and see what's going on. Or maybe not see what's going on. Okay, got a surface mounted cap here that actually looks bulged. Maybe, maybe not. Here's our power supply up front here, right here. That's where I suspect the issue may be, but just looking at the power switch now, okay, I don't think that's a latching style switch, so should be working. So do I check that switch or do I start trying to look into the power supply? Because I think that's where the problem is on this. However, I notice there's a cable missing from up there. But maybe it didn't have a cable. Oh, it says to LCD. Apparently that is for a model of Rotel that we don't have here. So, my suspicions are on the power supply, so we should take a look at said power supply. Maybe the standby voltage is foobar. I'm going to check those fuses first, see if I can move this to a point where you can see. Okay, fuses are good. So just trying to see the little labels on these connectors here. There are a bunch of them. I'm looking for any damage. I'm not really seeing any. Bunch of capacitors that are kind of shoehorned in there, but not too concerned about those yet. What I want to do is I just want to start checking voltages. That's what I want to do. Okay, I got my probe set up. Now, where's the standby? I'm going to look for that first. MCU 5 volts. Let's see if we got that. It is there. Okay, power on and off. 1.964 volts. 5 volts on off. 1.491 volts. I'm going to hit the power button, see what happens. Nothing. I'm doing the same thing for the voltages I just checked. Okay, what else can we check here? Okay, we got 5.2 volts there on the D plus 5 volts, I guess. Okay, we've got 5.2 volts on that connector as well. The other side of that connector is going to be ground, I'm sure. All right, what's going on over here? Check for voltages on these pins. I got 12.02 volts there. Nothing on the next pin. 15.21 volts there. 0.002 there. Just kind of working my way along. 15.2. I might have checked that one already. 7.2 volts there. Nothing there. 1.033 volts there. Nothing there. I'm on CN 902 now. 0.003. 7.2. 15.2. 12.02. 0.005. Are these supposed to have voltages but don't? Oh, and by the way, I just noticed something. I should probably try to show you if I can. Let me get you off the arm here. That little questionable place is right under the power supply. So maybe that's a ground that got interrupted by whoever fixed that. Maybe that's the problem here. Just in the process of disconnecting the power supply so I can get it out of here, and I just noticed something. That screw is missing. Someone has clearly been into this power supply before. So, very curious. At this point, I'm kind of thinking maybe the rest of the unit works. It's just the problem is in the power supply. So let's get that out there and have a little look at it, shall we? My suspicions were incorrect. This corner of the board has nothing to do with grounding. Grounding is done with this area and this one down here. So those were all good on the unit side of this. But before we do anything else with the power supply, we have to make sure that the main filter caps are drained of their energy, because the thing about these switching power supplies is sometimes if they don't start, they'll hold a lot of voltage. Somebody's replaced this capacitor before. I can tell. Why'd they do that? Got half a volt there. Half a volt there. Let's try this big one over here. 2.6 volts on that one. Let me discharge those. I need a different meter for this. This one, because I've got the bleeder resistor on it. We'll go after this area first with the higher voltage on it. And that's been pulled down to nothing. Let's do this. I'm not as concerned about these two capacitors, but we'll discharge them anyway. Okay, that's that. Should probably turn that meter off while I'm at it. Now, why did they replace that capacitor, and what the devil is going on with this? There's no component on this side of the board for that. Let's see, what is that? That's ground, isn't it? No, that's not ground. It's something, but it's not ground. Anyway, looks like the positive side of this capacitor runs on top of the board to other components, so... Oh, lovely, I get to diagnose a multi-layer circuit board. Or at least dual layer. But I just want to check these connectors here to see if there should have been voltages at all. Actually, I'm going to take a picture of those so I can diagnose a little easier later when this thing's back in again. Anywho, let's start checking some capacitors while we're in here. The tweezers are handy, so I guess we'll use them. Down to 100 hertz on the test frequency. Let's try this little guy. This is 10 microfarads, 50 volts. It's a TK branded capacitor. I'm not getting a reading on that. Let's try underneath. $12 ohms ESR on that bad boy. That sounds a little high. Let's compare with a good one, a new one. Granted, this is in circuit, but Nichicon PY, brand new. What does this measure? much lower ESR. So let's change that. Give me a moment. All right, we have changed N capacitor, that one right there. And there's several more like that I want to check as well. But just for the sake of data, let's check this out of circuit, see what we get. 7 ohms ESR. Still not the greatest. So this one is going to be a lot better now because it measured half the ESR. And I'm already seeing enough. Yeah, much lower ESR. I'm already seeing enough indications here that I should start recapping this thing because I think it needs it. That could be all that's wrong with it. Lots of these TK capacitors here. And clearly we've already found one bad one, so I forgot how irritating it was to solder on these multi-layer boards, but it is what it is. This processor used to cost probably about $3,500 new, maybe even $4,000 new. So if I can get this working with just a handful of capacitors, I'm doing really, really well at this point. But the initial symptoms do indicate to me that it is most likely a power supply issue that we're dealing with here. So these are 4700 at 25 volts. I'm going to assume those are good. They usually are at that size, and those are Panasonic anyway. But it's just weird though. Why would they leave that capacitor like that? Whoever last worked on it, I don't know. But what I do know is I want to test some more capacitors. That's what I want to do. So where's my tweezers? Over here, powered off. Of course. I have drained all the power out of this, so we should have no problems getting this to work. So let's just go through. I'm not going to check every value of every capacitor just now, but I will if I find something suspicious here. So let's get her done. Let's get the camera boom arm to stop moving. 14 microfarads, 68 ohms ESR. What is that? That's another one of those TK 10 microfarad parts. That one's getting changed. How about this one? 210. Okay, that one's good. And that one's good. And that one's bad. I think it's bad. It could be something in the circuit, but no, it's another one of those 10 microfarad TK parts. I'm seeing a pattern here, and I'm not liking it. Okay, this next one's been changed. It's a... Or no, that's not been changed. That's a Panasonic. Oh, you know what I think happened? Is this had a failure before, and they changed that capacitor, that one, and then 3 of these down here that are Panasonic now. I think they were all originally these TK parts that are going bad. I'm starting to be worried about all these semiconductors over here on the heatsink. I am finding more than enough issues here to warrant me recapping this whole board. But the Panasonics are all measuring good, so whatever. Oh, that one's kind of all over the place, but it's that same TK 10 microfarad part I've been finding that's not good anymore, and that one's a little better than the rest of them. That's 6.7 ohms ESR. It's that same value, though, so I'd want to get rid of it. Okay, this one's 25 at 1000. I don't think I discharged that, so I'll short it. Do we get a reading at all on this one? Yes, we do. That one measures good. Okay. I am thinking recap the whole dang thing, except for maybe the main 2 filter caps and the Panasonics, like I said. What flavor of Panasonic is that? FC. Okay, so we'll keep those. Panasonic FC is good stuff. I could go in there and replace it with FR because I've got them, But at this point, we know those are good, so I'm kind of just trying to find the bad stuff right now. What about these two here? Those look like Nichicon. Those ones. Right there. Those are 220 at 16 volts. Let me check them. These should be good. Okay, I'm reading maybe two at once here, but the ESR is good. Yeah, I think I'm measuring both caps at the same time there, so those are good. How about these three here? What are those? Nichicon PS. They're probably good too. What value? 1000 at 25 volts. We'll check those as well. Might as well. We're here. Just shorten them out first. 3 millifarads, so we're measuring three at once here. 86.7 milliohms. We're good there. So those are good. How about this one down here? What is that? Haven't checked that one yet. Also Nichicon PS. Value is 47 microfarads at 50 volts. Looks good to me. So, yes, all of these TK capacitors have to go. They're all either bad or going bad or at least not going good. I'm going to leave this this part in here now, and I'm going to go over to my Panasonic stuff for the rest of these, because these are all up by the heatsink, and I could see them getting hot and whatnot. But I should check those devices real quick before I go any further. No point throwing capacitors into this if we gotta buy semiconductors, is there? I have no idea what we're dealing with here, if they're MOSFETs or what, but that's good. I'm looking for shorts only at this point in time. And I'm not finding them. That was me shorting the probes together, nothing to do with the actual device. Okay, yes, the devices are all good on the heatsink. So I got some capacitors to change. Let's change them. I will go ahead and do this off camera, and then we'll see if this fixes the unit. I hope it does. Okay, power supply has been reworked and hopefully is good to go now. I'll show you the parts I replaced up here. I used a Rubicon ZLH here and a Nichicon PW here, and other than that, most of these are Panasonic EB or Panasonic FR. Like this one over here is an FR now. And so is this big guy right in the middle. But hopefully this works now and we have ourselves a working processor. It really seems like it was a power supply related issue, but we'll find out in a moment or five. All right, did I fix anything? We're about to find out in a second here, but first I've got you pointed towards the power supply in case it blows up. Switching power supplies, what are you going to do? I'm kind of nervous this is going to blow up as soon as I fire it up, but whatever, we will just try it and see. But I should mention that I am noticing a lot of other TK branded capacitors in there, so I don't know. This is not the same build quality I got with my Noresco amp back in the day, but whatever. Let's see if we can get it to do anything. Fire in the hole. Nothing going on the front panel. Still got the flashing Bluetooth light up over in this corner. Still nothing. I see another light on underneath the top board there, but let me get the remote here. No, she's still dead to the world. I had a feeling it wouldn't be that easy. It's kicking the relay on. At least we know that much, but I should remeasure these voltages just to be safe. So this really is going to turn into a minute mark level repair, I have a feeling, by the end of this, but I will keep trying. That's all I can tell ya. So maybe this thing actually is working, and we just can't tell because the front panel is out. Let me get an HDMI connection to my TV over my shoulder here, and we'll see if anything is going through there. No signal detected. Never a good sign. Processor still not responding. All right, this is the digital board we are looking at here. This is the brains for the whole unit. And I must say, whoever worked on this before broke a bunch of stuff that I'm not happy about. Like the other end on this connector, the catch on it is broken. Went flying as soon as I tried to disconnect it. So that shouldn't be a problem for getting this to work again, assuming I can get it to work again. I'm starting to kind of second guess myself on that, but whatever. Anyhow, we've got a lot of these surface mount capacitors here, and most of them don't test very good. So I think the next step is for me to delete those and replace them. But over here, I believe this is the main CPU for the whole device. There you go. That's what the main CPU is on this unit. I'm having trouble reading it through the screen, but you'll have to tell me or something. Anyhow, got another big chip up over here that should be mentioned, and these TK caps are everywhere, so unfortunately we cannot rule out the fact that somebody replaced good caps with bad ones, because it looks like those are all from factory on this. And there's a bunch of Panasonic FCs on it as well, intermingling with these terrible TKs. And we've even got polymers up in this area, so those won't be bad. I'm not going to worry about them. What I am going to worry about is getting these surface mount capacitors off the board and replaced with through-hole units. Let me do that. And there you have it, a bunch of nice pretty red capacitors in where the surface mount stuff used to be. And I did find a little bit of the magic fish juice under some of those old caps, but it's really unclear to me as to whether or not they're from me just cutting them off the board or if they were always leaking. Regardless, I don't like those surface mount caps, and I'm glad to see them gone. Now, there's a bunch more of them, and they're all on this board here, which is the daughter board that plugs in here. Let me just do this on camera real quick, because we got to test anyway. I can just get things out of the way here. Line up the connector. These I tested and they didn't measure as bad as the ones on the digital board, so maybe this is fixed, probably not. I'm just not at the level yet where I can reliably tell. What I can tell is the processor seems to be doing something because that Bluetooth thing lights up, and also this board lights up. So let me finish getting the HDMI board back in and we'll see if this does anything different. All right, we are back together and we're gonna just try this and see what happens. Powering on now, at least the back panel switch. No change. That's exactly what I thought was going to be the case. This may well prove to be above my head at the moment. Still getting the flashing blue light up there. I'm going to check real quick and see if I'm getting the other light. And I am. The one that's on that board underneath this board, that little daughter board. Well, I got her to do something. I got the standby light. Nothing else works because I unplugged this from the switching power supply. So I noticed there was something strange about the voltages on that particular connector. You see the second pin down here, 5 volts on and off. I was not getting 5 volts there. I was getting something else. 1.485 volts. So maybe the problem is still on the power supply. Interesting. All right, so let us proceed on the supposition that we have found an fault with this unit. We need to figure out where an problem is. Where is it exactly? Is it on the digital board or is it in the power supply? And the way I think I'm going to do that is I'm going to deplug this connector. And let's see, what we're looking for is the wire next to the gray wire. And what we're going to do is we're going to depin the wire with the fault on it. And we're going to see if we get the same voltage measurements. Okay, so it's this one right here. And it is the actual one that's next to the gray wire. I need to depin this, and this is always the fun part with these connectors, but whatever. Gotta get something in there to undo the latch so I can pull the wire out. Like so. Now I'm going to plug this back in. And now that this wire is flopping around in the atmosphere, we should be able to check and see if the voltage is still there, and we'll be able to tell a lot from that. If it's still 1 point something volts, then we know that there's still a problem, and the problem is on the power supply, most likely. If it's all the way up at 5 volts, then we know that there's an issue on the digital board. So that is the next step. All right, let us see what we get. Zero volts down at the power supply. So, oh boy, that means the problem is on the digital board. Great. Just what I wanted to diagnose today is a digital board. All right, I've had a look at this now, and I can kind of see where all this stuff goes. Kind of having to look around the camera phone right now, but the pin where we would expect to see 5 volts comes down through a really small PC board trace right about yonder, then ends up around here. So I'm going to reconnect this now. We're going to do this without the HDMI board present. I'm going to probe for voltages around that area to see exactly which component is responsible for that voltage. So we'll give it some juice again. I will take my probe here and I will just probe first the connector where I'm expecting to see 5 volts. Here we go. 1.5 volts again. So let's come down here and see if we can figure out where that's coming from. Okay, I got 5 volts on that one. I think that's probably the base. What's this one? 0.135 volts. 0.644 volts. No volts there. 5 volts again. 4.2. 1.96 volts. 0.3. 0.6. Where's our 1.5? Okay, I have made a little progress. Not much, but some is better than none. I'm going to see if I can put this down here so you can see what I'm finding out about this unit. Let's see, can I get everything on screen here? Anyway, I found it where this line goes to. And it goes to this little resistor right here. On the other side of that resistor, I get something like 33 ohms. And the other side of that resistor goes to that chip right in the middle of the screen there, this one. So that chip isn't working properly, it would seem. And what could cause that to not work properly? Well, it could be blown up, but we've got another batch of these awful TK capacitors around that chip. So you know how I measured the other ones, so let's measure these. We'll start with this 10 volts 220. Ribbon cable in the way. That one's good. How about this one? Get out of the way, you stupid ribbon cable. Thank you. This one is measuring 248 microfarads with good ESR. That might not be the issue. Same deal with that one. What I'm looking for is the one that supplies power to that chip, or filters the power to that chip. And I'm not really finding much at all. Well, that's kind of high ESR right there, but it's measuring the wrong capacitance, so I don't know how accurate we're being right now. Okay, so that's a 16 volts, 1000 microfarad part. I'm going to pull this board, I'm going to change all of these caps, and we'll see what happens. I don't expect this to actually fix anything, but you never know. You got to rule things out, don't you? All right, this whole area of the board has been recapped. Had to fold some of these capacitors over because of height issues, but whatever. Before we actually test this, though, I want to retest these capacitors that just came out of there, out of circuit. 16 at 1000. That one's good. I figured it would be. 22 at 25 volts. .6 ohms ESR. I don't know about that one. Let's see. 10 volts 220. Good. Another 10 volt 220. Good. 50 volts 1 microfarad. Good for that type of capacitor. Really high ESR. And the last one is 10 volts 100 microfarads. Two ohms ESR on that one. So I'm kind of expecting this to not make any difference whatsoever to the functionality of the unit. But I won't know till I get it reinstalled. Let me do that. Okay, shall we see if that fixed anything? I have my doubts that anything is fixed, but we'll give her a chance. Let's see, where's my 5 volt on-off thing again? There it is, measuring kilo ohms right now. And let's see what happens. I just got a real bad feeling right now that that chip is fried, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to replace that. That's not the kind of soldering I'm good at all. Anyway, let's see what happens. Same deal, 1.5 volts. Okay, it is the next day after I did all my diagnosis footage, and I have decided that I think I know exactly what happened to this unit now. We know that there were a lot of bad TK capacitors in there in the power supply, and I think what happened is the power supply had a failure and cooked the rest of the unit. I think that's what happened to this. I can't find any more physical damage or any electronic issues that might explain why it's acting the way it's acting. So I think it got its little brain scrambled and basically has to go back to the factory for reprogramming or some such. Because I think all the firmware has been wiped out of this thing. It's a software issue, I think, not a hardware one, because the power supply is currently working. Anyway, sad story for this unit, but it tells me one thing. It tells me that as soon as that Mark II shows up, I'm replacing the capacitors in the power supply. Not optional, or at least inspecting it to make sure it's using better parts than this thing did. Anyway, kind of a sad story, but I always kind of suspected it might end up this way, so I'm not too distressed over it. I hope the Mark II shows up in better shape than this. That's all I can tell you. And I really have to say this. This is not the Rotel I came to love back in the day when I bought that Noresco NC383 consolette. This is not that kind of build quality that I would expect from them. So this is probably it for me in Rotel. If the Mark II doesn't work, then I'm not coming back to Rotel. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.